Okay, and welcome everybody. It is now noon Mountain Time, and it is an honor and a pleasure to welcome you to the latest Converge webinar, this one focused on accelerating technology, innovation, and partnerships. And as you will hear, that stands for a new directorate, TIP, at the National Science Foundation that we're going to have the opportunity to learn about today. My name is Lori Peak, and I serve as the director of the Natural Hazard Center as well as the Converge facility here at the Natural Hazard Center at the University of Colorado Boulder. And it's my honor and pleasure to welcome you here today. I want to make sure and let everybody know that this session is being recorded. We will post the recording after the webinar today on the Converge website. We also have permission from Dr. Sumy to post her slides. And because this is only a brief 30-minute webinar, if we do run out of time for questions that are posted in the chat or the Q&A box, you're welcome to use either. We will download those questions. Dr. Sumy has promised to respond to them, and we'll post those responses as well. But hopefully we'll have a little bit of time for question and conversation today, but we're definitely going to reserve time for lots of information sharing so we have the chance to learn more about this new directorate at the NSF and also about the new program. So without further ado, it is now my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, who we just, for those who logged on early, learned that Dr. Sumy is now approaching her 6-month anniversary at the National Science Foundation, and she is currently a program director within NSF's Division of Innovation and Technology Ecosystems, which is ITE, is the acronym within this new directorate for technology, innovation, and partnerships, or TIP. And prior to joining TIP, for my colleagues out there who may be in the geoscience world, you may recognize Dr. Sumy because she served as a longtime project manager at the EarthScope Consortium, also formerly known as IRIS. And she worked on projects spanning from multi-hazard alerting strategies to reduce the impacts of natural and anthropogenic hazards, to geoscience field education and workforce development projects that really had a measurable impact on diversity, equity, and inclusion within our field. From 2018 to 2022, I actually had the pleasure of collaborating with Dr. Sumy and several of her colleagues, where she was leading a team of geoscientists and education professionals to help build public trust, understanding, and accessible and equitable earthquake early warning system for the U.S. Geological Survey. And her research, as you're definitely going to hear today come through in her remarks, really intersects with applied science and policy, and where she really works to ensure that technical results provide actionable guidance to state and federal government organizations, as well as to other entities. And Dr. Sumy holds a PhD in marine geophysics and seismology for the Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory at Columbia University. And so I'm going to pause there. I'm going to go on mute and turn the microphone over to Dr. Sumy as she's getting everything geared up. Please join me in a warm virtual welcome. And if you would, take to the chat and let us know where you're calling in from today. Thanks everybody for being here, and thanks Dr. Sumy for doing this for our hazards and disaster community.
Oh, well, thank you so much for the warm welcome. I am so pleased to be here today to talk about the new directorate, the Technology, Innovation, and Partnerships Directorate. And mainly what we're trying to do is a new directorate of NSF. If you did join prior, we started in March of 2022, and I onboarded in late August of 2023. So I've been with the National Science Foundation for only about 6 months right now, but there's a lot going on within TIP. There's a lot of just things that are happening. It's hard for me to even keep up with all of the activity. But my background specifically is in the geosciences and working a lot with social science professionals to make sure that early warning is accessible, equitable, and reaches everyone who needs to be reached, who are currently in California, Oregon, and Washington. That's what the Shake Alert Earthquake Early Warning System is serving. So I'm really pleased to kind of help demystify what TIP is doing, and also demonstrate that those of you who work in disasters, you really have a place within the new TIP Directorate. And I'll talk a bit more as I go through these slides. So my very brief outline, because I know we only have a half hour, is I'm going to introduce NSF, the directorates, and TIP very briefly. And then I want to talk about the new ReDDoT program, which is Responsible Design, Development, and Deployment of Technologies. We just launched in January, and I want to make sure that all of you are aware of that solicitation. And then finally, I really do hope that we have time for questions. So the National Science Foundation is an independent federal agency that was established by Congress in 1950 to promote the progress of science, advance the national health, prosperity, and welfare, and secure the national defense. And in fiscal year 2023, the NSF enacted budget was $9.8 billion. We at the National Science Foundation receive more than 43,000 proposals per year for research, education, and training, and also more than 13,000 applications for fellowships. NSF has 3 strategic priorities that TIP now continues to build through. TIP continues to strengthen the established National Science Foundation by investing in fundamental research, infrastructure, and STEM education. We also are working very diligently to inspire the missing millions who are not currently participating in our nation's STEM enterprise. And lastly, we are working to accelerate technology development and innovation at speed and scale. Okay, there we go. So we also realize that within TIP, we are now at a pivotal moment in our nation and society. I feel like I can't go a day without talking about climate change and its impacts. We're really working to address the effects of climate change. We also want to promote equitable access to education, healthcare, and even things like broadband connectivity. Lastly, we want to improve the US infrastructure, which is, a big problem within the disaster sphere, of that are critical in aging infrastructure that we are facing, and the just creating more resilient infrastructure across the United States. So just demonstrating through these 3 pillars that we are facing momentous challenges. And within TIP, we really think that at the same time, America's research and innovation enterprise is also undergoing historic changes. The pace of scientific and engineering discovery has accelerated. We are now seeing unprecedented levels of data coming to us that we've never really been able to get our fingertips on before. We're also looking at these key emerging technologies that I'll talk about in a minute. Also, we realize that STEM researchers and students are increasingly passionate about channeling what they're doing, their research, their innovation, towards addressing these problems that we face at a community level. And lastly, STEM talent is highly distributed throughout the United States. And it really prompts us to see that there's a need for unique new partnerships that blend expertise and resources across the United States. And NSF, we've been investing in fundamental research in all fields of science and engineering, delivering foundational and use-inspired outcomes for over 7 decades. And for example, NSF is the largest non-defense funder of artificial intelligence research. We have funded more than 240 Nobel Prize winners. And we've also directly contributed through our financial support to seminal advances like 3D printing, barcodes, the internet, and the first images of a black hole in the Milky Way. And I'll explain ReDDoT in a minute, but this is a collaboration not just amongst TIP, but in the biological sciences, the computer and information science and engineering, geosciences, STEM education, and social, behavioral, and economic sciences. I feel like you can't do disasters without having SBE involved. And so, in fact, we have 2 SBE program directors as part of ReDDoT. And TIP just wants to build a new horizontal to strengthen and scale use-inspired and translational research across the National Science Foundation. What we really think that we're doing within TIP is seizing a generational opportunity to focus on the pivotal challenges that I've discussed enhanced fundamental research that powers future technologies and solutions. And we want to tap into the full breadth of the nation's demography and geography. And we want to shape the US competitiveness as well as infuse diverse thinking and expertise into the development of new technologies and solutions. We want to ensure that the US remains a leader amongst this science and engineering enterprise, and that we can secure our nation's security for decades to come. We also want to address a critical need to advance the geography of innovation. That's a big key point for us. Engage communities throughout the countries that have been far too long overlooked. Either they've been unserved or underserved in the research and innovation enterprise. And I love this figure because I think it really describes what TIP is trying to do. We are trying to move things from foundational and use-inspired research that has long been part of NSF from the lab perspective and really bridge what typically is known as the valley of death, but we've been calling the ramp of opportunity, to make sure that that foundation and foundational and use-inspired research goes to society, is in the marketplace, and can really help communities at the local, state, and tribal scales, and demonstrate national and societal impacts. And we really believe that we can do this through three distinct pillars. The first is shown here in blue, the technology translation and development, where we want to support researchers, startups, and entrepreneurs to create technologies and innovations that have impact. In the yellow, we want to really have diverse innovation ecosystems where people feel that they're nurtured and supported through regional and national innovation and technological ecosystems that support researchers and innovators. And lastly, in green is workforce development. We want to support people from all demographics and geographies so that they have the training and expertise for the high-paying jobs of the future. So from the technology translation and development, so I'm getting a little more specific into what we're doing in the innovation and technology ecosystems, but we really are trying to prioritize and focus our investments in the technology competitiveness. And as you may be aware, the new TIP Directorate comes out of the Chips and Science Act from 2022. And so we have very specific purposes that we have to address as part of that act through the new TIP Directorate. So our first step, and one of the reasons I was onboarded last August, was to help develop a roadmap that would present a 3-year timeframe around the key challenge areas and the emerging technologies, which again, I will talk a little bit more in the next couple of slides. So there's these 10 critical technology areas that address these 5 societal, national, and geostrategic challenges. Okay, so what are these key challenge areas? The first 3 are around the United States and making sure that we have national security, manufacturing and industrial productivity, and workforce development and skills gaps. So those are really US focused. And obviously climate change and environmental sustainability, we're only, one country amongst many. And so we want to make sure that we are part of this global ecosystem here around climate change and environmental sustainability. And lastly, we want to address inequitable access to education opportunity and other services. And those are the 5 key challenge areas that were addressed in the Chips and Science Act. In addition to those key technology areas, we are also needing to address 10 key tech areas. So you can see here that it's artificial intelligence, advanced computing and semiconductors, quantum information science and technology, robotics and advanced manufacturing, disaster prevention and mitigation, advanced communications, biotechnology, cyber infrastructure and cybersecurity, advanced energy technologies, and advanced materials. And TIP is hiring 1 person for each one of these dedicated technology areas. So I'm thrilled to be representing technology area number 5 around natural and anthropogenic disaster prevention or mitigation. And that's exactly how it's written in the CHIPS and Science Act. So if you want to know more information about these 10 key areas, feel free to go to CHIPS and Science. And disaster prevention and mitigation is also one of the key focus areas that we want to address within the new ReDDoT program. And so switching gears just a little bit, I want to show the program website. And again, as Lori mentioned, it's being recorded and you will have the slides available. And I'm really pleased as the responsible design, development, and deployment of technologies, ReDDoT, though it's being led by TIP, it's also working with 5 philanthropic organizations, the Siegel Family Endowment, the Patrick J. McGovern Foundation, the Ford Foundation, Pivotal Ventures, and the Eric and Wendy Schmidt Fund for Strategic Innovation. They don't have a logo, so it's not here. And so it's been really fantastic to work together with all these external philanthropic organizations. And again, this solicitation is being directly funneled through by the National Science Foundation. So that's a often asked question, is that these foundations are sending money to the National Science Foundation so that we can support this program. And our program scope is to really focus on multidisciplinary and multi-sector teams. So we're really looking for physical scientists to partner with social scientists. And we're really looking for those who are coming from academic industry, coming from local, tribal, state government organizations. We're really looking, I always tell people, like, as long as you're not a federal employee, like, you are eligible to apply. And we really want to make sure that we can examine and demonstrate translational principles, methodologies, implementation, and impacts that are associated with ReDDoT. A key goal of the program is to support and strengthen these collaborations across disciplines and sectors. And I mentioned a bunch already, and I'll mention who's eligible in the next couple of slides. We also aim to ensure that ethical, legal, and societal considerations and community values are embedded across technology life cycles, because our theory of change here is that we're promoting the public's well-being and we're mitigating harm through technology. I know AI is the big tech that I feel like I just visited San Francisco last month, and I feel like I couldn't walk a couple of blocks without seeing something about AI. And so, that is something that we really want to focus on, is the ethical, legal, and societal considerations and community values. And I wanted to say that this is coming directly from the CHIPS and Science Act. So you can see that what I highlighted in red are these ethical, legal, and societal considerations. That's part of what we need to do from the Directorate, as well as develop mutually beneficial research and technology development partnerships. So the background of ReDDoT is really coming from these 2 sections of the CHIPS and Science Act. And our program objectives are to stimulate activity and fill gaps in research, innovation, and capacity building. We want to create broad and inclusive communities of interest to inform better practices. We want to educate and train the STEM workforce, accelerate pathways to societal and economic benefits, while at the same time developing strategies that avoid or mitigate societal and economic harms. We want to make sure that we're empowering communities, including those who have been historically economically disadvantaged or marginalized. We want them to be able to participate in all stages of the technology development. And here we just wrote down a few of our program values, and these are examples, but we really want there to be opportunities for meaningful stakeholder engagement. And these values are just some that we have thought through: accountability, equity, inclusion, sustainability, among others. But we know that there's an array of values that we want to really incorporate into our technology development. So as I mentioned at the beginning of this talk, that it launched in January 9th, and phase 1 deadlines are rapidly approaching. I can't believe it's the middle of February already, but we have 4 different types of grants that you can apply to: planning grants, these translational research coordination networks, and workshops. And the deadline for those is April 8th. And then our phase 2 deadline is April 22nd for full project proposals. We just recorded a webinar last Friday, and that should be available on the ReDDoT website. hopefully tomorrow. We were uploading it today, and it takes about 24 hours. So hopefully tomorrow. I also wanted to make sure that you knew about our office hours. We're holding breakout sessions for the specific challenge areas within Red Dot. And I just see that like I neglected to really focus on that. I really focused on disasters for this group of people, but the other two key technology areas that we decided to focus on as part of Red Dot were artificial intelligence and biotechnology. So if there are ways that you see disasters crossing over with AI or biotechnology solutions to disasters, then we would very much welcome those. Um, so we're holding office hours and breakout sessions and this Friday and the following Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern. So please go to the website if you're interested in registering. I also wanted to show that TIP is very open to a lot of different types of organizations that can apply, not just to Red Dot, but across the suite of opportunities that TIP has amongst our different programs. For instance, for Red Dot alone, we have institutions of higher education, for-profit organizations, nonprofit organizations, state, local, and tribal governments, and tribal nations that are all eligible to apply for Red Dot. And I'm going to gloss over this slide a little bit, but this is just showing for academic, business and industry, government and nonprofit sectors, the different programs that we offer that folks in those sectors are eligible to apply to as PIs. And so I'm really grateful that we're not just really focused on academics, which has long been a part of the National Science Foundation, but that there's a lot of big and broad opportunities for people across different sectors. If you want to learn about TIP and our funding opportunities, we have a newsletter that you can sign up for at new.nsf.gov/tip/latest. And you can always find out the most up-to-date information about TIP when you register there. For more information about Red Dot, this is the QR code. And if something piqued your interest today, or you went to the Red Dot website and try to Google, if you're Googling it, like NSF Red Dot Tech, because if you just Google Red Dot, you'll probably go to Reddit. And if you need anything from one of us, you can contact us at Red Dot with 3Ds at nsf.gov. And then I wanted to really make sure that we have a few minutes for questions. So I wanted to say you can always reach TIP at large at tip@nsf.gov, or me specifically, Danielle Sumy at dsumy@nsf.gov. And I hope that you'll take part in the TIP enterprise soon. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sumy. And I just ask everybody, if you have questions, please put them in the chat or the Q&A box. I'm monitoring both. And I'll start with one quick question. What if people want to take advantage of those office hours? How would they, I saw the times and dates on there, but how?
Yeah. So we're holding, again, it's breakout sessions by emerging tech area. So we're going to have a couple of breakout sessions for AI, one on disasters, one on biotech. So if you want to come, you'll visit with me again. The whole goal of the office hours are to make those connections. So we hope to open up the office hours that day at 2 p.m. You can go to our website. Again, if you're Googling it, NSF Red Dot Tech is probably your easiest, because I've seen myself that if I try to just Google Red Dot, I'll go to Reddit. And so, yeah, but you can register if you like scroll down. You can see that the office hours are available. We are limiting our registration to 120 people. So we ask that, like, if you already know or kind of have a nascent idea forming, then only one person should go to the office hours, because it's really all about making connections and talking to other people. So if you already know your project team, then this probably isn't for you. But if you're trying to find those partnerships and make those connections, then please, please come.
Excellent. And another office hours question just came in from Kamal.
Okay.
Will they be recorded and posted?
So our webinar that took place last Friday on February 9th is recorded and will be posted, but because the office hours are all about making connections, we're going to have something like 5 or 6 breakout rooms going on at the same time, it's not going to be recorded.
Okay, good to know. And then Jijin asked a question saying, could you share some funded research projects and why they were funded?
Hmm. Yeah, so ReDDoT I should have mentioned because we're only 2 years old. The whole TIP Directorate is a brand new inaugural program. So I don't have anything to compare it to because we're just kicking off, we're just getting started. And so I don't have any examples because it's our first year and it's exciting to be part of a new directorate, a new program, all the things, all sorts of new.
Excellent. And a question about because you do predominantly have an audience of hazards and disaster researchers on this call. Will the funding be sort of prioritized by the pillars that you presented? And there may be X% of funds dedicated to this pillar, to that pillar, to that pillar. Are you looking for intersections across the pillars? Help this audience to think about where they might be
Sure.
and what sort of
That's a
portion of the funding may be dedicated to hazard.
yeah. No. So we're not being like, a third here, a third there, that sort of thing. We're really just looking for ideas for what people want to do. We're really looking for the most exciting, impactful ideas that people have. I think it's always good if you want to try to make that overlap. We also decided out of this ReDDoT solicitation to focus on the key challenge area of climate change and environmental sustainability as it relates to AI, biotech, and disasters. Um, but as I mentioned, like we have 4 separate calls. There's planning grants and workshops, and the workshops can cover any of the key tech areas or any of the key challenge areas. So it's a very broad and vast program. And I'm really grateful to be here today because I want to make sure that we come out in full force from the disasters and hazards side, demonstrating that, we've got something to say and to do within this scope. Because I think there's always something to be done within the disaster sphere. That
Mm.
doesn't help, but like, again, being an inaugural program, we're not cut and dry. And also something that's great about working with these 5 external foundations is that if for some reason they really like an idea, they can externally fund it from their pot of money. So there might be actually more money on the table beyond what our program can support because they may independently decide to fund you. So I think that's really exciting.
Nice. We have another question related to the types of disaster mitigation or natural hazards funded. And so, for example, I know currently under the natural hazards engineering research infrastructure, for example, they focus on
Yeah.
specific hazard types like wind,
And earthquake.
seismic,
Yep.
tsunami, etc.
Yep.
Are there any sort of parameters around priority hazards disaster types, or are you looking at the full gamut of natural tech, maybe even terrorism, cyber, the whole gamut?
The whole gamut. Coming from the earthquake side, boy, did I have to ramp up in other hazards very quickly. Um, so yeah, it's covering the full gamut. So and I always suggest like if you have a one pager that you want to float, please by all means send it to reddot at nsf.gov. I've been looking at a lot of one pagers. There's 7 program officers that are assigned to this program. So if one of us can help you. So I've been taking a look at it all, but like, please send us a one pager if you're like, maybe ReDDoT's for me, maybe it's not. We're more than happy to look over it.
That is great to hear. And that was going to be my last question with our last 20 seconds. I've learned over the years that different NSF program directors have different communications protocols. So I see your personal NSF email
Yes.
is up there right now, but am I correct in that people could either reach out to you directly, or as you just said, if they really have that one pager ready to go ahead and use that ReDDoT email
Yeah.
for that?
Yes. So I do have my personal, well, my, work personal. If you have a question directly related to disasters, feel free to email me. But if it's around the program itself, please, yeah, email the reddot@nsf.gov. That way I can find the right person who can speak with you or look over your one pager.
Outstanding. And one of the things I've learned over the years is putting a face and a name to these programs can be so powerful. So thank you so much for giving us your time today for this presentation. Again, to everybody on the line, we are going to share the slides from today. We'll post the video recording. I see some police. So she's going to reach out to you by email. So you're going to get at least one contact,
Okay,
hopefully
good.
more. And just again, thanks to everybody for showing up today. Please go to converge.colorado.edu to sign up for additional updates. And last but not least, please join me in another warm virtual round of applause and gratitude to Dr. Sumy. We really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here to share about TIP and demystify it a bit and show what we're trying to do here within this new directorate. So thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And everybody have a great rest of your Monday wherever you are in the world. And I will say this, hopefully to see lots of proposals coming in from you in the month of April. So
Yeah.
thanks, everybody. Have a great one.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.